Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome into the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Emmet Wyman, and we are back. Week 9. Week 8 is in the books, guys, and we are officially halfway through the season. Man, I mean, what? Guys, I mean, you guys think I'm, like, being sarcastic when I say this, and I'm just, trying to kill time when I say this. I mean, it does kill time, but I mean, let's be real. This season is freaking flying, okay? Flying like Mike. Flying like a bird. I mean, it's flying. We are moving at an accelerated rate due to the restrictions that we're in right now with the pandemic. A lot of people are still remote, still working from home, so, the days go by a lot quicker. The stretch from Sunday to Sunday is like, it feels like 24 hours. It feels like you go to bed, you wake up, it's Sunday again. I mean, I don't know if that's you in your life, but that's me for sure. It's just been rough for some of these teams, and it's been, I don't think many teams can say that it's been a really good season. There's been more rough seasons than good seasons. And, why don't we just get the elephant in the room out of the way? For two teams that have been on the side of having really bad seasons. Oh my goodness, that Sunday night game, guys. Just forget about the Monday night game. I mean, who cares about the Giants? Okay, who cares? Nobody thought the Giants were going to win. For the Giants' sake, though, I mean, it was a really good effort. They played hard, and their restrictions are their quarterback. Their quarterback can't play ball. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, we've said this before. It's no surprise when I say this for many of you. I mean, Danny Dimes can't play when the game is moving fast. He just can't do it. Okay? And that's all mental. All right? Because they don't have fast, athletic players at Duke football. All right? If you want maybe Duke basketball, yeah, but not Duke football. All right? To go from that to the NFL is a huge, huge, huge step if you don't really have the necessary tools mentally and physically. And why don't we transition to, another small school quarterback who looks like, he looks horrible. Here's the stat, guys. If we had to do a comparison, okay, I don't do this often on this show. I should, because it really makes things fair, but let's do a player A and player B comparison. Okay, you guys ready for that? Player A is 21 of 40, quarterbacks obviously, 21 of 40, 180 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks, rating of 64.6. Okay, that's player A. Player B, 15 of 27, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles lost, and a 61.2 rating. Would you rather have player A or player B? I think if you're just going off the numbers game, you'd rather have player A, right? You'd rather have the guy that don't turn the ball over. Player A was a guy named Ben DiNucci. player B was the Philadelphia Eagles' savior, Lord and Savior, Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, you got outperformed on prime television at your own stadium by a 7th round pick in his first career start as a rookie from a little small school called JMU, James Madison University. And there's nothing wrong with James Madison University. It's a great campus. I knew a few people that go there. I've went down there before. Beautiful campus. Beautiful campus. It's a nice school. But that's not a school where NFL players come from, especially quarterbacks. So, Carson Wentz, here's the point I'm trying to make, guys. I mean, Danny Dimes is bad. But, like, we know that. Okay? There's been no success with Danny Dimes ever since he's been in the league. All right? He's won a total of four games or 3 games. He won his first ever start that titled him the name Danny Dimes was it was a 32 or 31, like a 1-point victory versus the Bucks. And the only reason they won the game is because Tampa missed the game-winning field goal. Okay, because Tampa can't find a kicker, even though they drafted one in the second round. But that was his first win, let's just say, okay? The only 3 other wins he got aside from that are versus the Washington football team. He's never won a game in his NFL career aside from beating the Washington football team. That's not a quarterback, guys. But is that a surprise that we're saying this about Danny Dimes? No. All right? And listen, I know a lot of Giant fans, there was a PI and he picked it up. Guys, this is NFL refs, all right? They're all crooked, and just look at the statistics on some of these guys. Some of these guys have so many favorites towards one way or the other, it's ridiculous, all right? Being a Cowboy fan, believe me, I know about how screwed up the officiating can be. Believe me, all right? But let's be real about it. Go watch the tape on that play. The play was a great play call by Jason Garrett, all right? Rare to say it, but it was a great play call. It had Dion Lewis from the gun out in the flat, and it was like sort of a pick route to where it would make the safety over the top have to really run fast to get over there to Lewis to make the breakup. All right? The only reason that safety was able to get there on that play was because Danny Dimes threw the ball late. All right? Go watch the play again. Danny Dimes, he got the ball out of the gun. He looked to the middle, he hesitated, and then he looked over to the right and threw the ball, but it was too late. If he snapped the ball and just immediately threw it in the flat for Lewis, Giants would have probably tied it up, went to overtime, probably still lost the game. But still, I mean, you have an overtime game versus Tampa. If you're a New York Giants team that's won 13 games in 4 years, you take that all freaking day. All right? Now let's transition into the real stinkers, the Philadelphia Eagles. All right? Now, we just told you about the player A, player B, and how bad Carson Wentz is, but let's really break this game down. Obviously, nobody freaking thought Dallas was going to win the game. Nobody. All right? The fact that Dallas was up at halftime is ridiculous. That's pathetic if you're the Eagles. The fact that Dallas, with a 7th, this quarterback that they have out there is literally a guy who has a freaking 70s porno mustache and literally looks like a fake-ass Aaron Rodgers. Excuse me. Literally looks like a fake-ass Aaron Rodgers. All right. You remember how... guys, remember in the State Farm commercials, not with Aaron, but with Chris Paul, how they had his stunt double who just, he wasn't as good at him. Remember Cliff Paul? Remember them commercials, the old commercials? That they need to get Ben DiNucci in the State Farm commercial to be Aaron Rodgers' stunt double. He just got to shave that little mustache or whatnot. But, I mean, once you take that off, he looks just like Aaron Rodgers, except he can't throw the ball at all, which is funny. But, I mean, Eagles, do you understand how pathetic that is? All right? It's not only the fact that you have... for Dallas, not only do they have a 7th round rookie as their starting quarterback, They have one of the worst defenses in NFL history. All right, one of the worst defenses in NFL history. And if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, or Philadelphia Eagles player on offense, you're telling me you could only score 16 points versus that defense? Are you kidding me? 14 points, 2 touchdowns. You could only score 14 points versus that defense. That is pathetic. That's so pathetic. And I say 14 because they had the touchdown, the defensive touchdown. All right, I guess you got to give, if you're going to give credit, I guess give credit to the Eagles defense. But I mean, come on. It's a 7th round rookie. I could be the defensive coordinator. It doesn't take a genius. So they get that ridiculous touchdown at the end. And then my man LP, who's been on the team for, since the Parcells days, he's been on the team. He's the only one left over from Parcells. Even Romo and Witten have been gone. He's still there. But he snaps the ball about like 50 yards in the air, goes out of the back of the end zone for a safety to lock up the game. But if you take those 2 silly plays out of this game, the Philadelphia Eagles would have won 14-9. That is pathetic. All right? And now, back to Carson Wentz. What the heck were you doing, dude? I mean, what is he looking at? He honestly, I tried to be polite about him earlier in the year, saying, basically, he's missing Frank Reich. That's the reason he ain't doing well. And I don't know if he'll improve. I'm going to tell you guys right now, that team has a quarterback problem. I'm being straight up. You can call me a Cowboys fan, an Eagles hater. I'm just telling you straight up that Carson Wentz ain't it. He ain't it. All right? And I can hear Eagles fans. Oh, we don't have this. Oh, we don't have receivers. Oh, we don't have our tight end. Oh, we don't. Eagles fans, you've been saying this for 3 years in a row. Give up. 3 years in a row you've been saying these same damn excuses. We don't have this. We don't have that. Don't get me wrong. All right, don't get me wrong. You need weapons. Every quarterback to be great, and every quarterback needs weapons to win a Super Bowl. Let's get that clear. All right, there's no quarterback that's just winning Super Bowls left and right with no weapons whatsoever. All right, Tom Brady had one of the best tight ends in Rob Gronkowski for his entire decade of winning these past 3 Super Bowls. And then earlier, he had other Hall of Fame players around him. Okay? Pat Mahomes has Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, who are top at their positions, as well as 2 studs at running back and a good O-line. So I get it. But listen, the Eagles' O-line was pretty much the same, probably a little bit better than Dallas, right? Not good at all because they have injuries. They're still starting 40-year-old Jason Peters left tackle, which, Randy the Blazer, when he saw that, he was like, oh, man, I got to make some money today. But they're still starting him at left tackle. The receivers they threw out there. Now, look, I know all the Eagles fans are saying they have no receivers, but you threw out there Jalen Reagor, your first-round pick. All right, first-round pick. You had second-round pick Dallas Goedert out there. And this Travis Fulgham guy, I'm telling you right now, he ain't a bad player. All right, he's not some scrappy. I know he's from like Old Dominion or something, and it's a long story up. He was a low draft pick, but the guy can play. All right, he can play. He was getting touchdowns over Diggs, and Diggs was having a great game. So the guy can play. I'll give him that. I'll give him credit. But let's stop with the excuses. Does Carson Wentz really need his all-pro starters to beat the Dallas Cowboys defense, one of the worst defenses in the entire history of the National Football League? You're telling me Carson Wentz has got to have everything right to beat that defense? Come on. Stop the nonsense, guys. That's ridiculous. And you're telling me, look, if you want to beat the Steelers, okay, sure. Everybody could use more weapons. Don't get me wrong. But we talking about a Dallas Cowboys defense that's horrible. Like, do you guys realize how bad the defense is? I'm sure you do. But look at the turnover differentials. That's what would scare me if I'm Howie Roseman. This Dallas Cowboys team is minus 13 in turnover differentials. They haven't forced a turnover all year. Actually, they forced one turnover, and it was a Danny Dimes sack. So let's not even count that, because that happened, or a Danny Dimes sack forced fumble. So let's stop it. Let's just not even count it, because everybody sacks Danny Dimes, and Danny Dimes always fumbles. So just erase that. This Dallas Cowboys defense hasn't forced a turnover all year, and they came in to Philly and forced 4 turnovers on your quarterback. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing if you're Carson Wentz. I mean, I honestly don't. I mean, if you're Doug Peterson, I don't know where to go. I mean, you're going to run over the Cowboys, okay? You're going to run the Giants over, of course. But you really got to be shaking your head after this game if you're not Doug Peterson, Howie Roseman, because that team is bad. That team is really bad. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys were kicking their butt in the first half on both sides of the ball. All right, they didn't do anything. They stalled out once they got to 30, which is why they were settling for field goals. But they were moving the ball in the first half with Ben DiNucci. I mean, Kellen Moore was literally running a high school offense, just doing these ridiculous reverses, having Zeke in the shotgun. I mean, he's trying everything. All right, and it's not really doing much, but I mean, he understands that it's a freaking 7th-round pick at your quarterback. You're not expected to do much. But, like, this is embarrassing if you're the Eagles. You should have won by 30. All right? You should have won by 30, and you've scraped away a win. You scraped and clawed for a win. That's pathetic. That's so pathetic. I mean, where do we go from here, honestly? Where do you go? I don't know where to go. I'd look to play Jalen Hurts. Seriously, if the turnovers are going to continue, Carson Wentz is at 12 touchdowns and 12 interceptions for the year. All right, that's below mediocre. That's bad. A rookie quarterback could do better than that. Baker Mayfield is better than that. Baker Mayfield. I don't know. I'm done. I'm not going to talk about the Eagles no more. I'm tired of all these excuses for Carson Wentz. I mean, we've been saying these things for 3 years in a row. All right, you could do it 1 year, maybe 2, but I mean, 3 years in a row. This dude is not good. I don't care. His record is like 500 since Frank Reich left. The turnovers have increased. There's no next step for him. Eagles fans, they keep referencing the 2017 season, all right, when he threw for 30 touchdowns and like 6 or 7 picks. They keep referencing that year, but yet they haven't ever been that good since that 1 year. Carson Wentz has never been that. And a lot of that is Frank Reich. So it is what it is. I mean, Carson Wentz, he's lost. He's freaking lost. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, you scored 14 on one of the worst defenses in the entire history of the National Football League. Here's what I'll guarantee. Once the Eagles win this division, they will get blown out in the wild card game. Blown out. Doesn't matter the opponent. So let's take a break. Why don't we get into power rankings and try to recap some of these games as we go along? Because there were some other really dumb games that went on besides the Eagles Cowboys. But we'll recap it all. We'll get into studs and duds, recap some of the players' performances in fantasy, and take a quick peek at waivers, even though waivers are freaking dead as mice, honestly. So we'll see what we got, but stay tuned. Let's break these games down and recap.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Let's get into some top 5, bottom 5 power rankings. Then we'll move on to some studs and duds. But let's break it down. Go top 5 first. I'm going to put the Buffalo Bills at number 5. Nice bounce back win for the Bills against New England. Good bounce back for New England too. It's just Cam fumbled and Buffalo was able to get on that and capture their first win against the Patriots in a while. The stat is ridiculous. I mean, they haven't beat the Patriots in forever, but really good win for Buffalo. They came in there, they played really hard, and they needed this win bad. I mean, they wanted to turn the tide and, dawn a new era for how it's going to work in that division. And the division is theirs to lose, honestly. We all know the Jets are going nowhere. The Patriots, I think really the Patriots, and Belichick knows it himself. I mean, they got to rebuild. I really worry about the talent that's on the Patriots. I don't think it's adequate. You saw Belichick, as we sit here. I mean, the trade deadline just passed. I should say that. But Belichick, today, he said that he's basically defending himself in the media for the first time in a while, saying, I got the 3 Super Bowls. We sold out. We bought free agents like Gilmore, and we got Brady's contract and all this stuff. Which, he's not lying, but he's also kind of shielding himself for, the long season that's going to be ahead for him. I think he knows this team ain't that good. He knows Cam isn't that good. As much as we love Cam for fantasy purposes, we all know that there's a big limitation on Cam. He was a career 60% passer. He lost his athleticism, and, that was the reason the Panthers decided to move on. So I think this narrative floated around that once he signed with New England, he's going to go back to Superman Cam and flexing his muscles and dabbing and, basically the MVP season that he had. And the truth is that wasn't even close to happening. Cam was a good fit just from a leadership perspective. He could replace Brady in terms of, just having that aura towards him as the quarterback, of the Patriots. But at the end of the day, Cam Newton is... best days are behind him. They just don't have. He doesn't have it anymore. And you saw that trend down for the last couple of years in Carolina. A lot of it was health related, and you thought earlier in the season that when he looked healthy. He was throwing the ball well. That Seattle game is a game that just sticks out in my mind. As to he looked healthy. He threw the ball really well. But maybe it's just now, looking back, is that Seattle defense is so pathetic that everybody throws the ball well versus them. Even Baker Mayfield. We're crying out loud. Kyler Murray threw the ball. Kyler Murray's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he threw the ball for 400 yards on that defense. Everybody throws the ball well. But anyway, he just hasn't, ever since that game, he's been horrible. And I don't know how to, this fumble, he's costing the Patriots big time. But I don't really know how good the Patriots are at the same time. So it's going to be a long season for them. I don't think we'll see them in the postseason at 2-5. Number 4, I'm going to put Tampa. Tampa, you got to play a little bit harder than that, blow the Giants out. Could be just, Brady's bad luck versus the Giants. I don't know. But Tampa should have whooped the Giants, and they barely eked out a win. So that kind of takes them out of the top 3, but they got to win at the end of the day. So we'll see where they go from there. I mean, we all know the talent's there with Tampa. They're getting Antonio Brown back, so they're really hype about that, but we'll see what it does for them. Number 3, let's go Seattle. Easy win for Seattle. I mean, DK Metcalf, my God, that guy is... I was totally wrong about him. I'm not even going to lie. Totally wrong. Wasn't a huge fan of him coming out. I mean, I understood he ran 4.3 or whatever. He was, big, tall guy, muscular, all that. I thought he was going to be stiff. He was just not going to have that fluent route running ability. He was just relying on go routes and stuff like that. And I'll tell you what, he looks like there's flashes of Randy Moss when he's going down the field with his speed and the way he can go up and grab that football. And I'm telling you what, for now, I don't know if DK is going to have a long career doing this, but for now, he's so damn athletic and, just tall and fast that he can go up and over any corner and go grab the ball, especially if Russell Wilson's throwing him the damn ball. It's going to be over the moon and right in the bucket. So, I mean, just a great player. I mean, for a second-round pick, that's an excellent draft pick by John Snyder. Probably the best GM of this past decade, if we're being honest. The guy's picked so many good players in the late rounds over and over and over. He just keeps his team alive by doing that. You only imagine if he hit on those first-rounders, man, he'd be something special. But he already is. So shout out to the Seahawks, man. They're really building that team right. I don't see how they don't be at least in the Final Four in the NFC Championship. I don't see how they not get there. They're looking like they're going to lock up the first seed in the NFC. Green Bay Packers, we'll talk about that. I mean, my God. Green Bay Packers, that team is so soft on defense, it's embarrassing. The Packers' defense this past Sunday literally looked like the Cowboys. I mean, their defense is, I think a lot of it has to do with Matt LaFleur, being this pretty boy West Coast. We're going to get all these wide receivers going and get everybody open, and the offense is going to be so lethal and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, Matt LaFleur, I mean, his team on defense is soft as crap. Mike Pettin has been there. He was there since McCarthy was there, so they didn't bother changing the DC. I don't know if he's the one to blame. I mean, he kind of tailed off in his past couple jobs, so wasn't good at all that. I don't know if he's really the right fit at DC, but at the end of the day, I mean, that identity of that defense is just soft. Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins didn't do a freaking thing. Kirk Cousins literally doesn't do a freaking thing. He gets paid $30 million. All right? I don't think even Vikings fans are going to defend him anymore. So it's not worth trying to call him out about it. I mean, they know. It's like, literally, there's multiple snaps. So you could put me in the game at quarterback. It was ridiculous. I mean, Dalvin Cook literally looked like Walter Payton versus the Packers defense. And the Packers, it's not like you didn't know he was coming. I mean, he was coming every play. Wind was like 25 miles an hour. You think they're going to have Kirk Cousins with this freaking lady-like arm trying to throw the ball 50 yards to Justin Jefferson? I'm just going to pound you up the middle with Dalvin Cook and say screw it. I mean, credit Mike Zimmer, man. That game probably saved his job, if we're being honest. So, he band-aided up that defense, pounded him down the throat. It kept the defense off the field, too. And we talk about this before, guys. What's the best defense in the NFL? Less defense. Keep your defense off the field. Doesn't matter all these superstars you got. If you keep them on the field for 35, 40 minutes, all those superstars are going to get burnt out. All right, you got to keep your defense off the field. It keeps them fresh. So when they do go out on the field, they attack, and they don't get tired. All right, because if your defense ever gets tired, you're not going to win a game. All right, because it doesn't matter what you do on offense; they'll just go down and score on your ass again. So, anyway, Seattle, we'll see if they get better on defense. I mean, they traded for Carlos Dunlap. Dunlap's a player that's aging, so he's not going to be around for much long. But maybe he'll give him a little bit of pass rush. I mean, that's all they're hoping for. They need it big time. Kansas City Chiefs are going to be a number 2. Kansas City versus Jets. I mean, it's no surprise. Obviously, they beat them. Just surprised Le'Veon didn't do his thing. I mean, my God, he didn't do anything. Le'Veon, what happened? Went for 6 for 7. I mean, he's a dud this week in fantasy, that's for sure. But the Chiefs, same old, same old. And then number one, they've been here for a few weeks now, Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they are the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. They're 7-0. They're a complete team. Unlike Seattle, Kansas City, I mean, their defenses are not anywhere close to where Pittsburgh is. Pittsburgh has edge rushers. They have interior linemen. Their corners are just enough. I mean, they make up for it with Minka Fitzpatrick at safety, who's just a really good instinctive player. So you could put old-ass Joe Hayden out there. It doesn't matter. Linebackers, I mean, Devin Bush went down, but it doesn't seem like they're missing a beat. I mean, my God, if they had that kid Shazier out, I mean, oh my God, that team would be disgusting if they still had Shazier. Shouts out to him, man. What a heck of a player. But that losing him and then going up for Bush and losing Bush kind of really set back this defense. But I mean, they're still handling it really well, and I think a lot of it. I mean, T.J. Watt off the edge he's starting to look like his brother. I mean, seriously, there's some plays where or series, if not, where he's showing dominance like his brother did on pass rush. So, I mean, that team is just going to obliterate the Dallas Cowboys next Sunday. Oh my God, I don't even want to look at it. Let's go to the bottom five now. Bottom five teams in the league: 28, Atlanta Falcons. I mean, I laugh every time I say their name because they're so putrid. Atlanta Falcons won versus the Panthers, but I mean, come on. The Panthers have no secondary whatsoever. The Panthers just ain't that talented. They'll be on the bottom five later on in the year, but they ain't there just yet. It's because their record is actually not bad. So they're 3-5. So they'll be on the bottom five soon. But the Atlanta Falcons still stink. Houston Texans 29. Houston Texans, they're a lost cause for this year. I think 1-6. Their season's done. They are playing team number 30, the Jacksonville Jaguars, this Sunday, and they should run over them. I heard the Jaguars benched they benched Gardner, or Garner's hurt or whatever, so they're starting some rookie. I don't even know the guy's name. I just saw the headline. Jake something. I don't know his name. Never heard of him, but Texans will bounce back this weekend. You can take that to the bank. But Texans, they need to rebuild their defensive line. Defense, everything. They got to rebuild. They got to do it without draft capital, which is really going to be challenging. And they need to find a coach. So Texans have a long way to go. The only thing going for them is Deshaun Watson. But when you have Deshaun Watson and you don't really have any pieces, it doesn't matter what he does. He just gives you a shot. So Texans got a long way to rebuild the other 252 players on that roster, just like Atlanta. Jaguars, they got to rebuild 53 players because they all stink. And guys, they are who we thought they were. I said this for 3 weeks in a row about Jacksonville. There's no surprise. I think that win week 1 versus the Colts, that win really just hyped them up in a new way that I don't think they were ever hyped up. At least recently, maybe since the championship game. Everybody, maybe Jacksonville, they're not tanking or this. Well, I mean, they already tanked. They already traded away and released a bunch of players before the season started. So they already were set on Trevor Lawrence. The only thing is that week 1 win versus the Colts probably cost them Trevor Lawrence because it don't look like the Jets are going to win a game, guys. Honestly, do you think the Jets are going to win? I don't think so. I honestly don't think the Jets are going to win. And the only way they do win is maybe Adam Gase wins a couple games down the stretch somehow, some way, just to get back at Joe Douglas for basically wanting him fired and, trading away all his players. But the thing, he don't have the talent regardless of what kind of motivation he instills. I mean, he could bring Rocky out there and instill some motivation like no other in these players. It still wouldn't matter. I mean, that team is hopeless. The players on the team know they have no shot. So that's how you know that team is screwed. But finish off the bottom 5. I mean, guys, it's the same screwy teams every week. The Giants, the Jets, the Jags. We'll put the Giants at 30 because the Giants, they showed a real good effort versus the Bucs. I was actually impressed with the Giants. I'm not going to lie. Their quarterback just stinks. But the Giants overall, it wasn't bad. So we'll put them at 30 instead of 31. We'll put the Jags at 31 and we'll put the Jets at 32. So that's the power rankings. To recap, I don't know if I missed any games. maybe I'll tell you, well, let me get a break because I need some water, man. And then we'll get into studs and duds. Recap some of the players that did really well, and then recap some of the players that absolutely crapped the bed. Coming right up.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back. GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Kind of the highlight of the recap show, or the Tuesday show, I should say, is the Studs and Duds segment, where we break down the players that did really well and outperformed expectations, and then we break down the players that stunk. So let's give them some awards here for the studs. Quarterbacks. Stud number one. How about, it's no surprise, but we got to give it to Pat Mahomes. No surprise. It's the Jets. It's not like he wasn't going to do well. Russell Wilson, too, obvious. It's the 49ers. The 49ers are nowhere freaking near the team they were last year, guys. And I've said this like a month ago, so it's not like it's news, but still. They're nowhere close to where they were. Nowhere close. And a lot of it is that defense. They don't have the same linemen they did last year. And that defensive scheme with Robert Salah, whatever his name is, that defensive scheme is entirely relied on the defensive front. All right, that's why you have at corner Richard Sherman, who's 30 years old, Is Richard Sherman retired? The guy's basically a podcaster now with Collinsworth. I don't know what he's. I like the podcast. I'm not going to say that it's bad, but I don't know if is he playing anymore. I don't want shit. I don't want my corners being more involved in media than they are in my own team. But hey, that's why you have. You could have guys like that back there, and these random like Akilo Wither. These guys you never seen them before, in terms of make big plays on the 49ers. But you see the D linemen always making these plays. So what I'm trying to say is when those D linemen are gone, these guys will get exposed. So the 49ers just ain't that good. Stafford, not Stafford. Stafford actually, he didn't do bad. He had a sack fumble, but you can't really blame it on him. But I was going to say Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers, I'm telling you what, he looked really good. And again, a lot of it, goes back to the Lions' weak defense, which I don't know how. The defense has been a problem for the Lions every single year under Matt Patricia, who's a defensive coach from Belichick. Does that make sense? If you're the Lions, how is your top unit as head coach doing terrible every single year you've been the coach? That makes no sense whatsoever. So, the Lions are they're always a mess. But, the fact that you let Phillip Rivers do whatever he wants at secondary. Guys, do you see the way Rivers throws the ball? He throws the ball like it's a boulder. He stinks. And he torched you. That is embarrassing. Aaron Rodgers did good in fantasy, but he was, I don't know. He looked all right out there. He looked chilly. And that's what you expect. throwing the ball at Lambeau with 30-mile-per-hour winds. My last stud, though, this guy looked really good, and I love him. Justin Herbert. I mean, he looks good, man. He looks good. I really, really like Herbert, man. Speaking of Herbert, the one game I did want to recap that I was forgetting about was the Charger game. I mean, how many times are we going to say this? Anthony Lynn cannot close games out. I mean, this has happened over and over. It happened with the Bucs. It happened last week. I mean, this has been happening over and over and over again. I mean, if you're Tom Telesco, the Chargers GM, you got to be sitting in the booth with Dean Spanos. You got to be sitting there going, man, pat myself on the back because I drafted a heck of a quarterback. I sat there. I didn't have to give up draft capital. I sat there on my butt and drafted a great quarterback. So, I mean, pat yourself on the back for that. But you got to be sitting there like, man, we were blowing these crummy Broncos out, and we're better than this, and we let them come back in the game. I mean, there just comes a point where it's time to go. I mean, I just don't see. I mean, we'll do this segment maybe later on in the year in terms of what coaches are not coming back. I mean, I don't know how in the world they bring Anthony Lynn back for another year. I mean, he has just been costing them game after game after game. I don't understand how they bring him back. I really don't. Let's go to duds. Ben DiNucci, but it's not like we're expecting him to be a stud. It's pretty clear, guys. I mean, Ben DiNucci's just an Aaron Rodgers ripoff with a 70s porn mustache. I mean, it's ridiculous. Tua was a dud. I mean, I know, people were really excited for Tua. I get it. Alabama stud. I mean, Scott Hansen, the first pass, it's like a freaking bootleg, completes it in a flash. Scott Hansen's over there talking about, this is why we got to get a Tua, one of the biggest franchise. I mean, it's like, dude, calm down. He did a play that I could do. Like, we're getting all Dick Vitale over it. I mean, Jesus. I don't know. But, I mean, Tua overall didn't look that good. I mean, it didn't look anywhere close to Justin Herbert did his first game. I mean, Justin Herbert came in there minutes. All right? People forget about this already. Justin Herbert was told minutes before the Chiefs game, you're starting, dude. Let's go. And he almost won the freaking game versus the defending Super Bowl champs. That's incredible compared to what Tua did. All right, Tua didn't do anything. Now, granted, the Dolphins won the game, but how did they win the game? They won the game because Jared Goff is a wimp. Okay? We said this before, guys. Jared Goff, when you pressure him, when you talk smack to him, when you basically hit him in the mouth a couple times, he folds. He can't take it. All right? He can't take it. He doesn't like contact. He doesn't like pressure. He just can't handle it. I mean, he's not tough at all, mentally or physically. He's just not tough. Like, the dude wilts, and that's like the last freaking thing you want as a quarterback is to have a guy wilt. Because when your quarterback wilts, your team wilts. And that's what happened. I mean, you saw after that first, sack, strip, fumble, return for a touchdown, just look at Jared Goff's face. It's blank. Like he's lost. You can look at it, man. Just I'm telling you guys, man. I'm telling you, he ain't it. Him and Wentz suck. I'm just gonna say it. Him and Wentz suck. All right. There's one thing as a Dallas Cowboy. There's one thing the Dallas Cowboys did right is they got the best quarterback in the 2016 draft in the 4th freaking round. I mean, good shout out to. I mean, it wasn't even Jerry. It was Jason Garrett that drafted him. But I mean, I guess we got to give a little clap for Jerry. But still, like, them dudes ain't it. Tua, I'm gonna give you time because I can't be saying one game he sucks. I mean, that's just not fair at all. But I mean, if we're comparing him to Justin Herbert, oh man, I mean, if you're in Miami, you got to be sitting there with a little bit of regret. And if you're Miami, this is what you also got to think. You got to sit there and you got to watch Tua. And, I mean, they have the Houston Texans draft pick. I mean, I know a lot of guys forget about it, but they have the draft pick. And right now the Texans are picking 3 overall, I think. So quarterback is going to be available if you're Miami. And you honestly got to sit there and say, is Trey Lance from... we were bashing Carson Wentz. This kid's from the same school, I think. North Dakota State or whatever the heck is. I don't know. Somewhere in the mountains. Justin Fields. I mean, my God. Is Justin Fields better? I doubt they see Trevor. But so you got to ask yourself questions like that, because if one of those guys is better than Tua, if you think, then you got to get Tua out of there. And you got to trade him. And, I mean, look, you don't want to look like Arizona, trading a guy you just drafted. But, I mean, look where Arizona is. I mean, they're doing pretty good. Believe it or not, that team's going on the up. They just beat Seattle. So they can contend in the NFC. Who knows, guys, but, you got to ask yourself that. You got to get your quarterback right. Let's get out some more duds, though. I just went off on a couple tangents. Carson Wentz, I already went off on Carson Wentz. He's a dud. He's a dud since day one at this point. That's what we should have known. Jared Goff, a dud. Kirk Cousins, a dud. Kirk Cousins just didn't do anything, so obviously he was a dud. Sam Darnold's a dud. Been a dud since he was drafted. And then our last dud. He's a dud every freaking week, and it's Baker Mayfield. All right? Baker Mayfield stinks. I mean, I don't know where I rank Baker Mayfield in compare. I mean, honestly, Baker Mayfield might be better than Carson Wentz. That's crazy. I don't know if I was ever going to say that, but I mean, if I'm going off the past game, man, I mean, maybe they're 50-50. I don't know. I guess, I don't know, but they all are they're horrible. All 3 of them. Don't ever start them in fantasy. That's for sure. Let's see. Running backs. We'll get into some running back studs. I mean, obviously the obvious stud of the week at running back, Dalvin Cook. Jesus. I mean, how many yards did he have? Like over 200? Talk about a guy that looked like Walter Payton. I mean, my goodness. He was all over the place. I mean, they literally gave him the ball every single play. And they couldn't stop it. I don't know how you watch that if you're Matt LaFleur and just sit there. I don't know. Zach Moss, stud of the week. I mean, if you guys picked up Zach Moss, listened to the podcast, I said about 3 weeks ago. I mean, I know it sounds like every time I say something, I try to, pump up my own you-know-what and basically say, oh, I said this a month ago. But I literally said this a month ago, guys. Like, I'm not kidding when I say it. All right, if you don't believe me, go back and listen to the podcast. But I know you guys won't do that because you don't want to hear me brag. But, I mean, I told you 3 weeks ago, a month ago, don't give up on Zach Moss. Don't give up on him. Why? Singletary ain't it. TJ Yeldon damn sure ain't it. So don't give up on this guy. They draft him for a reason. He gets goal line work. All right? Now, I should just do a whole episode. I don't think you guys understand how important goal line carries are. We're playing for touchdowns. Nobody's playing for yards. All right? You play for yards, you're a loser. Nobody's playing for that. You play to score in the end zone. Touchdowns. 6 points. We're going for the big runs. We're not going for, 10 yards here, 10 yards there. That can kiss my butt. I want to go touchdowns. Zach Moss got 2 of them. And he got 81 rushing on 14 carries. He honestly looked like a beast, man. Running that hard on the Patriots defense. I mean, he was getting this guy. I'm telling you guys, he runs hard. I loved him at Utah, one of the best running backs they ever had. I was saying, for a late round flyer, he was in that conversation with Gibson and those guys. Take a shot on him, see what you can got. I know a lot of people dropped him. A couple weeks ago, they said, this guy's been out like 3-4 weeks with a toenail injury. He's a win, forget about it. And I said, you're going to regret it. You're going to regret it, and you're going to probably have to go pick him back up if you drop him. What do you know? Everybody and their mom this week, the Matt Berries, the Field Yates. Oh, we got Zach Moss as our priority waiver ad. Priority waiver ad? Come on, guys. He's on your bench if you've been listening to me. That's how you want it. You want, basically, the name of the game is to find value on the waivers in players or low draft picks and stash them on your bench. Hope they do well. Hope they break out so you can end up starting him while everybody else in your league tries to either trade for them or pick up them on waivers when they're too late. All right? It's like basically selling the stock for a high price before it goes to the Wall Street Journal. Before it's documented, you know what I mean? But guys, that's the name of the game. Finding value before others. All right? Especially at running backs. You have to do that. So always take flyers on running backs. Because if a running back breaks out, that's extremely valuable. And if you have Zach Moss, good job. Thanks for listening. Giovanni Bernard. I mean, I make fun of DiNucci with the 70s porno stash. I mean, Giovanni can give him a run for his money. That thing. Giovanni, shave your freaking mustache, dude. That thing is ugly as crap. You literally look like some guy from a cartoon in France. I mean, it's ridiculous. Somebody ought to slap him for that crap. But hey, the guy had some goal line work. He got receiving work, and I was making a joke about Giovanni. He's going to be really productive. I said don't pick him up because the Bengals were having really bad old line problems on the Saturday show, but I just can't figure that game out. I mean, the Bengals literally moved the Titans defense out of the way and did whatever they wanted on offense. And shout out to them, man, because that was a hard way to win a game versus a team that's really good on offense. They played well, both sides of the ball, and they won that one outright. Good win for them. Really good win, especially without your key players. Jordan Wilkins, stud, man. I mean, it pisses me off because everybody I know has John Taylor. I've been saying take John Taylor. It was reported that John Taylor had an ankle injury during the game, so that's why Wilkins and Hines got a lot more carries. Who knows? They had Taylor in there on a goal line, then they took him out for some reason. They put Trey Burton in. They did that stupid play, which makes me sick every time they do it. But I don't know what Frank Reich's thinking. He likes to mix up his running backs, but I'm telling you right now, Wilkins and Hines are not better than freaking John Taylor, and John Taylor is a 3-down back. They keep thinking John Taylor can just run. No, he can catch, and he can lay out on a block for Phillip Rivers if he has to. I don't know why they don't see it in him. Maybe they're just young. He's young, and they're trying to monitor him. It doesn't make sense, but I'm not giving up on Taylor. And then I guess my two last studs, Derrick Henry, he's a stud every week, and then Damian Harris for New England. Damian Harris, hyping him up a lot, man. We really have. All offseason, we were saying stash this guy on the bench. Eventually, he's going to break out. He went on the IR early on in the year. I told you guys a month ago when he was coming back, over a month ago, says stash this guy if you have a room on your bench. And if you did, you're doing good because I'm telling you right now, while he would be on your bench, everyone else is making him their priority waiver ad, listening to the mainstream. So we try to be ahead of the mainstream, guys, because we need the players that they're picking up already on our bench. So if they do really want them bad, meaning them as in somebody else in your league, you trade them away for value. All right? Always try to get value. Value, 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 value. Just write down value and capitalize it because it's the name of the freaking game, guys. All right? Let's go to duds. I went on a lot of tangents for studs. Duds at running back. The Chiefs running back stunk this week. I mean, they didn't use him. I don't know why they didn't use him. I guess, the Jets are so bad in pass that they wanted to show out with Pat Mahomes. And then once they went up by like 30-10 or whatever, they took everybody out. They put in freaking Chad Henne. I don't know how the heck he's still in the league. They had Darrell Williams at running back. I mean, they were just they took out everybody in the starting lineup. So they were all a dud for fantasy. Melvin Gordon, dud, did absolutely nothing. Kareem Hunt, nothing, a dud. Zeke Elliott, dud, but I mean he's got no offense around him. It's not surprising. That's all I got. I guess. Swift too. DeAndre Swift. That kind of surprised me why they didn't really give him a lot of burn. I mean, he was really trending up these past few weeks, in my opinion. Definitely more than freaking AP. So I don't know why they don't use him, but it don't matter. So they got rid of him, or they didn't use him, and they didn't use Taylor. So we'll see if they bounce back. Let's go to receivers. Receiver studs. DK Metcalf, we already talked about him. He's for fantasy, he's easily one of the top 4 or 5 receivers. I mean, he's been outstanding this year, no doubt. Devontae Adams, same thing. He's ever since he's came back from his injury, he's been what we thought he was, a number 1 receiver, almost 20 points a game, which is ridiculous. So he's been an absolute stud. Tyreek Hill versus the Jets, we knew he'd score, so stud for him, right? Robert Woods, 20 points for Robert Woods. So what does that mean, guys? He's going to get 2 the next week, but he's on bye, so you can go ahead try to trade for him if you have him, or trade away him, I should say, if you have him. Curtis Samuel, he was a stud on Thursday night versus the Falcons. It's the Falcons, though. Every receiver's a stud versus them. And then Corey Davis really showed out for the Titans. Really screwed up our A.J. Brown fantasy owners. But A.J. did score a touchdown at the end to kind of make it even. But still, nobody wants to see Corey Davis. I mean, I know Corey Davis has some good games, but let's be real, guys. He ain't it. Duds of the week, Robbie Anderson. I mean, expected a lot more out of him versus the Falcons. Didn't really get it. Kind of surprising. The Vikings receivers were duds this week, and that's just because they ran Dalvin Cook every play. It's not really because they did bad. Jarvis Landry, he had a touchdown, but he had a touchdown that got called back, I should say. And aside from that, he was a dud. And then my last dud, Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley was an absolute no-show, and then he ended up getting hurt, having to leave the game. Hopefully he doesn't miss time. Tight ends, and then we'll wrap this up. We'll go to a break because I've been going on for a while. Tight ends, I guess studs. Kelsey, no surprise. Tell me not that the New Orleans Saints were throwing passes to Taysom Hill, who's technically a fantasy tight end. Does that make Taysom Hill a priority waiver ad? Especially getting 5 rushes for 35 yards. Man, he looks like he definitely a priority waiver ad. Taysom freaking Hill, go figure. Gronk looked good. He had 10 points, did his thing. He looked pretty darn good. Ebron, he got wide open over on a crossing route, scored. I guess we'll give him a stud for the week. And then Hawkinson did alright. He had 7, not too bad. So he's actually more towards the mediocre list. But I guess that's all I got for studs. Duds, we got more duds this week. Darren Waller. Darren, what happened, dude? I guess they were just using you in blocking this week. Joe New-Smith, nothing. Nothing from Joe New. And I think a lot of it is, guys, I said this one, Joe New's doing really good, but you got to watch his targets. They're going to come back down to earth when A.J. Brown returns. So what do you know? He's been nothing these past 2-3 weeks. So I don't know where to go with Joe New. I'd say hang on to him and cross your fingers because I guess that's all you could do. Mark Andrews, nothing. I don't know what happened to him. He was doing real well early on and then nothing. Just been inconsistent. And George Kittle got hurt. So we'll see where they go from there. But that's all I got, guys. Let's take a break. And then we'll do waiver wire. Waiver wire is going to be 5 minutes, guys. All right, there's no players. But we'll try to dig and scatter to try to find you guys some players to shore up some empty spots on your roster. So stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, we're back. Final segment, GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. The waiver wire segment, which is just turning into a non-existent segment. Already an hour through the show, guys, so we've been going long enough. So you really don't need to hear me anymore. But I'll give you guys a few names I like on waivers. Damian Harris, I mean, he's not really a waiver wire ad. I mean, he's already rostered in over 50% of leagues. But if he's out there, pick him up. Because he's going to get burned. He's not really getting goal line burned, but he's getting burned. And he could do some stuff in the receiving game, so I definitely see value in him. Brandon Ayuk, if he's not already picked up, pick him up immediately. Guys, some more realistic options. Marvin Jones Jr., he is going to be a pretty good option going forward, actually, because Kenny Golladay looks like he's going to be out this week. And Doc is saying he's probably going to be out the next week. And Doc being Doctor, you guys, if you watch the ESPN, you guys know I clown him. I mean, it's not. Look, they're not bad at their jobs. I'm not saying that at all. They're the mainstream. All right, so they're giving you a list of 10 guys when they all stink to add on your team. That's why. I mean, I know there's always players to be found at the end of the day, but I mean, guys, there's already you should have a team in place. There should be a core of starters that you have and you know are going to produce and be consistent. All right, these waiver wire ads are not going to save your team. So if you got without a quarterback and you're picking Derek Carr up and he's going to save your team, it ain't happening. If you're without a running back and you're picking up Matt Breida to try to shore up a spot, it's not happening. So you better make some other moves. But you should have a core, and especially if you've been listening, you should have already had a solid bench because we've been paying guys before everybody else pick them up, like the Jeffersons, the Steelers receivers like Deontay, Jonnu Smith. I mean, guys, we've been on some of these players forever. Damian Harris, we've been talking about for a while. Zach Moss should already be on your bench. We've been talking about him. So those are just a few names off the top of my head that were easy. Guys that were easy to get. Some of these guys you could have literally added as free agents, if not most of them. So you already should have a solid bench and starting lineup if you've been listening throughout the whole year. But that's not to shame anybody who hasn't. It's just saying that you better wake up because the season's halfway through. The fantasy season's over halfway, but anyway, back to waivers. Guys, I mean, Chase Edmonds, a guy that we've been talking about for a while, but, I mean, 2 weeks ago I said add him if you haven't already. I mean, if he's still out there, add him, obviously, but there's no way he's still out there. Everybody's got to have him by now. Let's see, Mike Williams. I mean, Mike Williams a lot of people dropped him last week because of a bad game, 0. I'll tell you what, guys, the reason I'm picking Mike Williams is because his quarterback is freaking good. And I want receivers who are catching balls from Justin Herbert. So give me Mike Williams and give me Mike Williams on the bench all day. As a number 3 or 4 receiver, I'll take Mike Williams all day. Probably don't want to have to start him if I don't have to, just because the inconsistency, but the upside's there with Mike Williams, especially with a good quarterback. So let's see. I mean, any other waiver names I'm looking at right now? I guess I'll give you guys pick up the Washington defense. They're playing the Giants. We all know that. I mean, I know the Giants play hard on Monday night, but Washington's coming off a bye. I don't think the Giants can really handle their defensive front. Danny Dimes is guaranteed a turnover. So I honestly make the Washington defense a priority add on waivers in some of these names that I'm saying right now. Some guys I see are added, commonly added. Jared Cook is getting added this week. I'm not believing in Jared Cook. Corey Davis, I'm not believing in him. LaMichael P. Ryan, I mean, give me a break. Why would anybody... You don't want anybody on the Jets, and that's pretty obvious. Jerick McKinnon, he's still out there, but, I mean, you don't know what you're going to get from him. JaMychal Hasty, I guess he's a priority. I'd make him a priority add. If JaMychal Hasty's still out there, pick him up. Well, again, we already talked about JaMychal. We talked about him 2 weeks ago. All right? I talked about JaMychal when... I think it was what was the game? It was the Ram game when we talked about JaMychal Hasty. The podcast after that, I said, keep an eye out for this kid. Pick him up as a free agent if you have an extra roster spot. So if you did, he's now a starter for you this week because they're going up against the Packers without Tevin Coleman and Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert and all those guys. So, again, I mean, I'm not Jordan Wilkins. Like, come on. You got to pick him up. So I'm done with waivers, honestly. I'm done, guys. If you haven't been listening all year, all right, we told you names to stash on the bench. We've told you there's at least 5-6 guys that you should have easily been able to get that I've said, and it's not like I just say 5-6 guys. I've probably said like over 20 guys, just players that I've been shooting out of my mouth in terms of saying people that you should stash on the bench. But still, like, you should have these. I'm telling you guys, you should already have players stashed on your bench. That's the whole point of the draft. That's the whole point of waivers early on. Now, it's not like waivers are dead for the entire year. There's still going to be guys due to injury that are going to prosper. So take a shot on Marvin Jones because Kenny Galladay's hurt. Take a shot on name flew out of my head. It doesn't even matter because the player's probably irrelevant. But you guys get the point. You should already get up with the game, get your players on the bench, and you should be rocking and rolling. If you've been listening. If you haven't, sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I can't fix your team. That's all I got, guys. Hopefully you tune in next Saturday. I'm going to be recording with my... So I apologize. We didn't do a Saturday show, me and Kayvon. So we didn't have an episode last Saturday. So a couple guys hit me up asking where the clips were at. I'm sorry, guys. No clips this week. All right. No X-rated content, nothing. no goodies. But believe me, the Golden Nuggets are coming back next week. We'll have an episode recorded and already done for you to get ready for Sunday. So get your team right, get your ears out, be listening, be tuned in. Follow the Twitter GSMC_FFootball. You guys should already follow that by now. GSMC_football. The accounts are linked. Review, rate, subscribe to all the podcasts on Spreaker Network, Spotify, YouTube. I mean, all the networks. Okay, it's not like I got to run down all the networks. We're in 2020. Stop living under a rock. Because some of you guys, I really think you're living under a rock when you talk about not only fantasy but just like real life. So guys, wake the F up. Let's go. Get pumped for football. Let's get your team right. Let's get your head in the books. All right, some of you need to get your head in the books. And some of you need to get your head on your freaking waiver wires because your teams are horrible. And I'm not talking about the listeners. I'm talking about the other people in my leagues that are failing in second fiddle because we're on the players already, but that they're trying to get. So it is what it is, guys. We're ahead of the game over here on GSMC Podcast Network. So just make sure you're locked in everything. I appreciate you listening. Have a good night. I'm out of here.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.